We want to step aside from that right now for some breaking news related to ICE and the Department of Homeland Security, and that is a post from President Trump on his social media platform, Truth Social, saying that he is removing Kristi Noem from her role as the commissioner of the Department of Homeland Security. I've seen some headlines here that say she's been fired from that role. The way the president has said it in his post on Truth Social is that she is being moved to a different role as the special envoy for the Shield of the Americas, which is a security initiative in the Western Hemisphere, saying that he'll be announcing that new post coming up this weekend on Saturday, replacing Kristi Noem with U.S. Senator Markwayne Mullins of Oklahoma, who he says is the only Native American in the Senate, an advocate for tribal communities, and will work to keep the border secure. Now, that is who he said that he will move into that role. Obviously, when you have a role like that, it does face a confirmation process here, but certainly it would be expected that he would be confirmed in that. But again, this just coming out saying that Kristi Noem is being removed from her role as heading up the Department of Homeland Security to be replaced by the junior senator from Oklahoma, Markwayne Mullins. There had been some talk about this in recent days, reporting based on sources at the Capitol that the president had been unhappy with Kristi Noem. Certainly that has been going back to her role here in Operation Metro Surge in Minnesota, when she was removed from her oversight of this operation here, and when her replacement was brought in, Tom Homan, who is the border czar, to come in, and Homan was reporting directly to the president, not to Kristi Noem at Homeland Security. So that sort of started a lot of, speculation that maybe she was sort of on the hot seat there. She's had a couple of recent appearances in front of committees for testimony, as recently as yesterday, where she was being held to task for some of the things going on with immigration enforcement. But again, as recently as an hour ago, I'm reading one post here that Markwayne Mullins, the senator from Oklahoma, telling reporters he'd not spoken with the president this week, would not engage in hypotheticals. That's according to the New York Times here. But again, now this post from President Trump saying that this move will take place. Ryan, we'll bring you in here as we get ready to go to break here. But this is something that has sort of been rumbling here, that there was maybe some unhappiness with her role here. The president has said multiple times, I know recently as a few weeks ago, I remember seeing him talking to reporters outside at the Capitol or outside the White House, saying that he thought she'd been doing a great job, but certainly a lot of the speculation had been bubbling up.
Yeah, Rob, as you mentioned, going back weeks ago, almost a month ago now, when Homan came in to replace Gregory Bovino, there were reports that the president had a kind of sit-down, closed-door meeting with Secretary Noem to talk about things, but out of that meeting, it seemed that the president had still had his support behind Kristi Noem. And then just over the past 2 days, Kristi Noem spent testifying taking questions from both Democratic and Republican lawmakers about the ICE operations here in Minnesota. There were two days of that testimony, and but yes, has always been this kind of background discussion about her handling both behind the scenes at DHS and some of the comments that she has made in front of the camera regarding to some of the operations here in Minneapolis. So.
Yeah, one of the notable pieces of testimony or exchange came from U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota, that was really taking Noem to task a little bit for comments she had made after the shootings of Minnesotans here during Operation Metro Surge, and in calling, using the language of domestic terrorism, saying that you called him a domestic terrorist, We're talking about Alex Preddy, where Kristi Noem said, no, I said that this was an act of domestic terrorism. They were kind of going over the semantics there a little bit of what was said, but she certainly came under a lot of heat, including from several Republicans on these committees, too, that were kind of taking her to task for some of the issues here related to the immigration enforcement.
Yeah, and it seems like there's been a breaking point at the White House, and now Noem has been reassigned to that title that you mentioned earlier. Of course, Noem has some regional connections, served as the governor of South Dakota from 2019 to 2025. She's mentioned several times that in her in discussions about these ICE operations in Minneapolis that she knows Governor Walz from back in her days in Congress, where she was before she served as the governor there.
Yeah.
So that is the latest news here at this hour.
Yeah. So again, to reiterate that Mark Wayne Mullen of Oklahoma is who President Trump has said will become the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, and that Kristi Noem will be the special envoy for the Shield of Americas, a new security initiative in the Western Hemisphere we're announcing on Saturday in Florida. And that Shield of the Americas, Western Hemisphere, you know, there's been a lot of this, talk about different priorities for considering all of the Americas, North, Central, and South America, as being part of the Western Hemisphere Americas, and that there would be more focus on sort of protecting the interest of all the Americas as it relates to the United States of America. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what this role is for Kristi Noem.
Yeah, and really before the ICE operations started here in Minneapolis, Secretary Noem's main focus was along that southern border with U.S.-Mexico and kind of trying to restore the situation down there from the previous administration. We have heard that this White House has been so critical about the Biden administration and their handling of the crisis on the southern border. So that was really where she started, was kind of the focus on that border, and then it kind of expanded from there into Minneapolis and Chicago as we talked about immigration enforcements here.
Yeah, so we'll see what comes of this throughout the day, but again, this breaking news based on President Trump's Truth Social post saying that he was moving Kristi Noem out and bringing Mark Wayne Mullen, the junior senator from Oklahoma, in. So we'll keep tabs on what the reaction is here through the next hour or so. All right, time to take a quick break here, Ryan. And